Have you ever noticed how good it feels to completely eliminate a worry? Even a small one. Well, today we're diving into a powerful mental shortcut that explains that feeling. It's called the zero-risk bias, and it sheds light on our deep and often pretty illogical craving for absolute certainty.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a quick question. Imagine you have two options to make things safer. You have to pick one. Which one just feels better to you?
So what's really fascinating is that most people, without even thinking too hard about it, are drawn to choice B. Even if choice A would statistically save more lives or prevent more harm, there's just something so satisfying about wiping a threat completely off the map. That pull you feel? That's the bias in action.
Right, so this powerful preference for getting rid of a small risk entirely instead of just making a big dent in a much larger one, well, it isn't just a random quirk, it's a well-documented cognitive bias.
Here's the core of it. Our brains get fixated on the magic number 0. We put way too much emotional value on the complete elimination of a threat, and that often leads us to make choices that are, frankly, less effective overall.
And this just nails it perfectly. Zero risk feels like a solved problem, right? It's done, it's final, you can relax. But lower risk, well, that still feels a little anxious. It leaves the door open to chance, even if the situation is actually much, much safer from a logical standpoint.
So why is that? Why is our brain so obsessed with the idea of 0? It really all comes down to our fundamental hardwired desire for certainty. Think about it this way. When a risk is completely gone, it's like you can close that mental tab. The case is closed. But if you just reduce a risk, you still have to manage it, you still have to worry about it a little bit. Our brain always prefers the easy way out, that feeling of certainty, even if it's kind of an illusion. Getting rid of a fear just feels so much better than just managing a harm.
But here's the catch. That comfortable feeling of 0 can come at a really high price. Chasing it can lead us to make some surprisingly bad trade-offs in some of the most important parts of our lives. Let's look at a few examples.
Okay, so with safety decisions, we might obsess over a product that completely removes some super rare kind of household accident, but we'll ignore another product that would make a much more common danger, like, say, slipping in the shower, 50% less likely. We just love the story of total safety.
And this is the paradox, isn't it? We make the choice that feels safer, but the result is a world that is, statistically, more dangerous. Our feelings are literally overriding the math, and that can have some serious consequences.
We see this exact same logic pop up with our money. A lot of people would rather keep their savings in an account with super low guaranteed returns, just so they have zero risk of losing a single penny. And in doing so, they miss out on investments that have minimal, totally manageable risk, but would offer way, way better growth in the long run.
The key thing to get here is that this desire for 0 can feel like the most rational, conservative choice you can make. But a lot of the time, it's actually an irrational decision that ends up costing us a ton of opportunity down the line.
And maybe most importantly, we see this play out with our health. Someone might actually refuse a life-saving treatment because they want to completely eliminate the tiny, tiny chance of some minor side effect, like a headache. They're literally trading a huge reduction in a serious health threat for the certainty of avoiding something trivial.
So what happens is our focus gets all distorted. By chasing after the complete elimination of these small, manageable risks, we totally lose sight of the much bigger dangers that we should actually be worried about. And when you add all that up, the consequences are pretty significant. We end up pouring our time, our money, and our energy into all the wrong places. We make these decisions that feel good in the moment but actually leave us worse off in the long run, not just as individuals, but as a whole society. Okay, so the big question is, what do we do about it? How can we fight back against a bias that's so deeply wired into us? Well, the key isn't to ignore our feelings, but to arm ourselves with a better way of thinking, one that's focused on proportion, on asking the right questions before we make a choice. Here's a fantastic little toolkit with 4 steps. First, always focus on the big picture. How much total harm are we actually reducing here? Second, just be skeptical of anything that promises total or 0 risk. It's almost never real. Third, ask yourself, okay, great, I saw this tiny problem, but what bigger problems are still out there? And finally, just always remember that making a big dent in a big risk is so much more valuable than completely erasing a tiny. And this is the shift we need to make in our heads. We have to move away from choices that just offer symbolic safety, that feel-good sensation of getting rid of a tiny risk, and move towards choices that offer a meaningful reduction in our overall risk. It's about being effective, not just feeling secure.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Take a look at your own decisions with your career, your money, your health. Where might you be choosing to eliminate a tiny, comfortable risk, all at the expense of tackling a bigger, more important one? The answer might just surprise you.